Well, howdy do everyone, and welcome back to the ranch. I'm Dr. Lee, and I'd love to say it's another beautiful day in South Texas, but it's not. It's kind of pretty, blue skies and sun shining and all that, but it's cold and it's windy, and kind of like Uncle Floyd always used to say, I love a nice breeze, but I totally hate the wind. Good old Uncle Floyd. Been kind of busy around here the last couple of weeks. We've had a lot going on out in the yard of our old farmhouse where we've lived out here for 33 years now. Just busy stuff with all these workers putting in a new sprinkler system for us. My yard's basically been inundated with workers and trucks and ditch witches, and now it's just a maze of troughs and gullies and trenches and scores of pipes and valves and boxes and what's got to be miles of copper wire. But looking out over my dear sweet yard, I just kind of had a flashback of this little guy right here. And just like our last meeting, the weather has been erratic as it possibly can be. We've had days that had highs up in the 80s, followed by days that the highs were only in the 30s. Temperatures down into the 20s several times, just back and forth and back and forth. We go from short sleeve weather out enjoying doing things like this, and also seeing little people like this.
What?
Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
What is it?
I don't know.
Do you know what it is? Camera. It takes pictures of deer. To the other extreme where we have to bundle up just to get our daily chores done. So like the clickbaity title of this video promised, we did have a tragedy out here on the ranch last week. And actually there's another tragedy I want to talk to you about as well. We will get to that further on into this video. But this first tragedy had to do with a young white-tailed buck deer that got tangled up in the fence until he died. And for those of you with squeamish tendencies, this is a good time to look away right now. My wife commented the other day that she had seen buzzards along one of the fence lines, and that is not good. So when I went to investigate, here's what I found. And yeah, there were plenty of buzzards there. And here's a little buck deer that had a bad accident. And basically I'll switch over to that area and let me tell you all about it. Well guys, I hope you can hear this. The wind is really gusty out here right now. I will take the camera somewhere else to finish this video, but I wanted to show you the type of fencing that this little deer got hung in. Basically this is what we call bull wire. It's got a bull panel up to 4 feet off the ground, which is basically just heavy gauged galvanized wire on a 10 by 8 inch centers, and it runs the entire length of the fence both ways, and it's topped off about 2 to 3 inches above it with a run of barbed wire. And basically what our little buddy did, he was on one side of the fence needing to jump to the other, and they usually pull their back legs up against their body when they go over the fence, but evidently he either let his legs hang down a little too far or he didn't jump high enough. But nevertheless, both of his rear legs went under the barbed wire and over the bull panel at the same time. When he got on the other side, it just twisted both of the legs and ensnared him upside down where there was absolutely no way he could get out of it. Poor little guy. Okay, we're back, hopefully out of the wind a little bit better right now. And so I had a dilemma on my hand. I could have taken this little guy with my tractor. I could have dug a hole within 30 minutes, had him completely buried and been onto something else. But I got to thinking about that, and if you'll remember, I had a dilemma similar to this about 4 or 5 years ago where a deer got, unfortunately, he snagged one of his back as a little doe, and she snagged one of her back toes in the chain link fence that goes around my yard. Same thing happened to her. And here's what I did with her, and I thought I'd just do that again. This is the winter, and food is scarce around here. And yes, I could have gone and buried this guy and gave him a proper return to, ashes to ashes. But I got to looking at him and I thought, that's 80 to 100 pounds of food that the animals around here that are having a tough time finding food right now could eat. So I unceremoniously hooked him up to the four-wheeler and drug him that direction, about 400 or 500 yards, down to an area where you've been many times before called Moondust. It is a crossroads where deer and hogs and coyotes, all the wildlife, they just seem to go through there. The name Moondust comes from Mark and Drew. They used to ride their motorcycles through there, and the soil there is very, very rich and very, very loose. And when they would goose those motorcycles running through there, it'd kick up a nice rooster tail and look like, you guessed it, Moondust. So anyway, I drugged this carcass down there and I left him there. I didn't feel really good about it, but on the other hand, I did not feel good about just taking that much food for all these animals that are so hungry right now and just robbing them of that. So please don't judge me for that. It was a call from the heart, and I didn't like making it, but I didn't like not making it either. But anyway, I decided not only to take him down there, but also I was curious to see who would take advantage of free food out here on the ranch. So I left this poor little guy out there at Moondust, and there was absolutely no action until about 9 o'clock. Initially, a little male fox who we see that frequents that area came strolling by. He wasn't really too excited about seeing 100 pounds of free food just laying there on the ground in front of him, but he stretched and yawned, and then I guess he went home to tell Mom all about it. We see this little male and also his little bride very, very frequently, the two of them right here. And this time of year, I'm sure they've got a den full of kits. The mom has got a damaged left front leg. That's how I can always tell it's her. And then this male is usually always with her too. But anyway, she's got something happened to that leg. It either got broken, more than likely the way she drags it, she's probably got some nerve damage, probably for those biology and medical students out there, probably has a radial paralysis of that left front leg. So because she can't seem to pick it up, she just kind of seems to drag it along all the time. But she does really, really well. But anyway, after Dad went home, Mom came back. And here's our little cripple mom right here. You can see she's very, very curious and very, very cautious. And she just continues to check her surroundings. She'll circle that carcass, but then she'll go back into the woods and look around in the woods as if there's some predators there. But she circled and circled and circled this deer for over an hour. And I guess she figured if there was anything out there in the woods that was bad, it had probably gone away, or at least it was worth the risk to try to get some free food and drag it home. So to get this carcass back to her den, back to her kits, she started tugging and tugging and tugging on the tail. And she worked that tail over. I mean, pulling and pulling and pulling. I'm sure she was sitting there thinking, if I didn't have this bum leg, we'd already be home having dinner right now. But she just kept fighting it and fighting it. But anyway, she kept tugging on the tail, and then she started tugging on the belly. And then that didn't work either. She just tugged and tugged and tugged. And then she started tugging on the head of the deer. And interestingly enough, all the while, she would stop and monitor her surroundings. What I didn't know that time is more than likely she was hearing these knuckleheads right here. This is a camera that's about 200 yards away, and they were doing some howling down there. So I bet she was hearing these coyotes making a ruckus. And after about 2 more hours, our little mom just flat gave up and disappeared from the videos. However, Dad did show up for a couple of cameos. He walked around, sit down, yawned a few times, washed his hands, and totally ignored the bounty of free food laying right there in front of him. A typical guy, right? And within about a half an hour, we found out exactly why our little cripple mama fox was so leery. These knuckleheads came in. And even more so than the little mama fox was, they were extremely apprehensive. They spent about 30 minutes circling the food too, and then finally one of the females came in and started eating. The coyotes too have pups now, and what the moms will do, they'll go in there and eat as much of the food as they can, and then they'll go back to the dens where the babies are, and they'll regurgitate it all out, and then the puppies will eat that until they're old enough to go out of the den on their own. And we soon found out why the coyotes were also so apprehensive when all of these hoodlums showed up on the scene and proceeded to decimate the rest of the carcass that was laying there on the ground. And these guys, unlike the foxes and the canines, they were totally indifferent about their surroundings. They didn't care. They knew they had no enemies there, and there was a free meal right in front of them. But within about 15 minutes after the hogs' appearance, they pulled a disappearing act. They all were gone, and the carcass was gone too. I went out there the next day on my four-wheeler and just kind of scoured the whole area. I never found anything with the exception of one piece of one of the front legs of that deer. The rest of it was completely gone. I don't know if they ate the entire thing or if they carried it, you know, several hundred yards away, but it is gone. The whole enchilada, like they say, guts, feathers, and all. But, you know, I guess that's why they call them hogs, because they indeed hogged that. But anyway, it was kind of frustrating to me because, as you all well know, this ranch is dedicated to taking care of the native species, the indigenous animals and the indigenous plants, if you will. And here we had an indigenous species that died, and I thought I would use that to take care of 2 or 3 other indigenous species, buzzards, coyotes, foxes, you know, whatever. And then this non-native species came in and took 90% of the meat away and benefited from it. And I was really, really frustrated about that at first because, you know, they're not indigenous at all. They're feral, and they come in here and destroy everything, and it makes it difficult for the indigenous species to inhabit these areas when this non-indigenous species destroys all their habitat. And you know, I guess I got a little bit more realistic about it, and yeah, I was mad at the hogs, but honestly, it was not their fault. They didn't ask to be in the situation that they're in. That was a human thing. It's our fault that we have this problem. And you know, I just got thinking, it's wintertime, food is scarce. They were doing the same thing any other animal would do. They found some free food, they took advantage of it and probably drug it off to their families as well. All right, tragedy number 1 taken care of. There will be no more squeamish stuff in this video. Well, it will be squeamish, but for a different reason. But speaking of hunger in these animals, there is a much, much greater indignity that is very, very prevalent. As long as we see images like this, we are not doing our job as humanitarians. We're not doing our job as Christians. We're not doing our jobs as stewards of good conscience. We talk about kindness and love a lot on this channel, but talk is cheap. And you don't have to go abroad to witness starvation and poverty. And for those of us that need just a little bit of a reminder that this is what we're supposed to do, someone once said, "Whoever oppresses a poor man insults his maker, but he who is generous to the needy honors him." And someone also said, "Whoever gives to the poor will not want, but he who hides his eyes will get many a curse." Guilty as charged. My goodness, how many times has it been more convenient just to turn my gaze somewhere else than realize someone else's bad situation? Well, folks, that's the second tragedy I wanted to bring to you today. And the first one is just an ongoing part of nature. The second one is something that's an ongoing part of our inability to look beyond ourselves. So I would like to give you a challenge, a little homework if you would. Between now and my next video, I would really, really appreciate it if you would go out and try to find someone in need and do your best to help them. That's your homework. Don't let the dog eat it. Folks, thank you so much for stopping by the ranch today. You know it means a lot to me, and I thank you so much for being here. I really enjoy our time together. Once again, God bless you all. I look forward to seeing you on the next video, and I want you to always remember I love you. Bye-bye now. So what you doing there, Al?
Neutering a dog, Dad.
All right. Who's gonna learn you?
That's a mistake.